Jazakallah khair.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 people, not one person said wa alaikum salam. Excellent. Thanks, bro. You're a real one. You're a real one too. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. That's better. You put the mushaf on the floor. Alright, pick it up. Shouldn't leave the mushaf on the floor. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wa salatu wa salam ala rasulih kareem wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to teach us what is beneficial to us and to benefit us with what He has taught us and to increase us in knowledge. Welcome to episode 2 of the Women of Jannah series. Raise your hand if you were here last week. MashaAllah. So you're going to help me out with the revision in the next 5 minutes about what we took last week. Niall, you raised your hand, right? Alright, who did we talk about last week?
I was only here for like the last 20 minutes.
Okay, so we talked about someone in the last 20 minutes.
The hairdresser.
What was that?
The hairdresser.
The hairdresser of who? The pro barbers at Monmouth Mall? Ivy Dreams. No, which hairdresser?
What's his name?
Firaun's daughter.
Firaun's daughter, right? And why was she important?
Because she's the hairdresser.
No, the hairdresser didn't snitch. Yes, Benna.
Because the daughter was a Muslim.
She was not the daughter of Firaun. The hairdresser was a Muslim. And what did she do? When she was combing Firaun's daughter's hair, she dropped the comb. Awesome. She said Bismillah before she picked it up, and what did that cost her?
Her life and all her children.
Yeah, her whole family's life. And she didn't give up, right, her Islam even after Firaun cooked her children in front of her, right? Even after he threw them, literally like boiled a pot and threw her baby and her children in there, she still stood with Islam. So that was one of 3 people we talked about yesterday. Who was the other person? Bana.
I was gonna say when Firaun throws the baby into the pot, the baby speaks
For her mom, right? So good. So the mom, she hesitated with the baby. She didn't want to, because it was the youngest child. And then the baby spoke. And what did the baby say, Bana? Do you remember?
he said, let's go to Jannah together.
Yeah, like let's go. Basically, she said, let's, don't worry about me. We're going to go to Jannah, you and me together, right? So this was a miracle from Allah Subhanahu wa Taala to give her the extra courage she needed. Like we talked about the hairdresser. Who was the other 2 people we talked about?
From the wife. Can remove her name.
Okay. Any hands? Yes. We didn't talk about Isa's mom, but you read my mind because that's who we're talking about today. Not Khadija. They're all in the same story, by the way. We didn't tell 3 different stories. This is all part of the same story. This is all in the story of Firaun and his evil and the women that stood against him, right? And one of them we said was the hairdresser of his daughter. There was someone else. Who was she?
Musa alayhi salam's mother.
Good. Do we know her name?
No.
All right. I didn't find anything. If anyone finds something in the books, maybe I think in the Bible they have a name for her. Allahu alam if it's true or not. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, you can take from the books of the Christians and the Jews if it doesn't contradict Islam, right? If it's not mentioned in the Quran, it doesn't say something different, you can take it, but we don't know if it's 100% true or not. But what was she so special that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just for the sake of time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded the mother of Musa, He sent an angel, He gave her this communication. Who remembers what we call this communication? When Allah speaks to someone who's not a messenger.
Hidayah?
Not Hidayah, no. This happens to many people, many of the companions of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where Allah inspires them to do something, right? Or sends an angel to say something to them. But they're not messengers, they're not prophets. And the mother of Musa was one of these people. We call this, who remembers? We call this ilham. Ilham is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends a message to a regular person, me and you, right? Any normal person, and Allah has a specific mission for them to do, and one of them was the mother of Musa. He told her to put Musa in the basket, and we saw how she had full trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even though the plan didn't make any sense. Allah told her, put your baby in a box and throw him in the biggest river in the world, and he'll end up in Fir'aun's house, the guy who's trying to kill him. Like, the plan makes no sense. But she had full faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah took care of him in a way that none of us could have possibly come up with it. Like, if any of us was going to make an escape plan, we would be like, all right, he escapes down the river, he goes to, I don't know, the Mediterranean, crosses, goes to ancient Greece or something like that. Like, our plan wouldn't have been as good as his plan. The third person, which the Rasul ﷺ told us that she's in Jannah, and we know that she's in Jannah from Surah Al-Tahrim, right? Who is this final person? Okay, what's her name? Rayyan, do you remember? Okay. That's not her name. She wasn't born as like, I'm going to name her Fir'aun's wife. We'll take from her first. Asya bint Muzahim, mashallah. So the Rasul ﷺ said that many men have perfected their religion, but only 4 women in history have perfected their religion. The first one he mentions is Asya. She perfected her religion. And what did she do? The summary of her story, again, she was the wife of Fir'aun. She was the one that took care of Musa and adopted him basically as a child. And when she saw his evil, she went up to him and she said, كَفَرْتُ بِكَ وَلَا أُبَالِي وَأَمَنْتُ بِرَبِّ مُوسَى وَهَارُونَ. Yeah. She became a Muslim, and she literally went up to Fir'aun after he tortured and killed all the magicians, and after he killed the hairdresser, after she saw everything he did. Instead of hiding and running away or being secretly a Muslim, she went up to him and she says, I disbelieve in you and I believe in Musa and Harun, and I don't care, do whatever you want. And what did Fir'aun do to her in response? Tortured her. What else? Yeah. He took her to the middle of the desert, tortured her pretty much to death. Then when she saw her place in Jannah, Allah showed her house in Jannah, she started to laugh because she got so happy from seeing her house in Jannah. So Fir'aun said, this lady's crazy. Take her to the canyon, drop a boulder, crush her. And what did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do to her?
He took her soul away 1 second before the boulder hit her.
You know why I like Ali? He just got here. He didn't even sit down. He's already answering questions correctly, mashallah. There's people who, mashallah, are paying attention, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took the soul of Asya before the boulder even hit her and took her straight to Jannah. And we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that her dua was, Rabbi ibni li indaka baytan fil Jannah. She said, oh Allah, build me a house in Jannah and save me from Fir'aun and his evil actions. Here's a question for you guys. Now it's 7:15, and I promised last week from now on we'll start 7:15. Here's a question for you guys. Why are there more boys here than girls? I'm going to come back to this question because this is an interesting thing. It has something to do with what we're learning today. Yeah.
Isn't it better for men to go to the masjid than women?
Not to seek knowledge. When it comes to salah, yeah, the women are not required to go to the masjid for salah. It's not discouraged, but it's not really encouraged. We don't go like, oh no, go and pray in the masjid. You can if you want, and Allah will reward you, but you don't have to. But to seek knowledge, right? This has nothing to do with being a boy or a girl, and this series is about girls. And we don't, mashallah, for the girls that did come, but we have a lot more boys. I'm going to come back to this in a bit. I'll come back to your question too. You can put your hand down for now. The family of Musa alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran that Allah has chosen a few families and has made them the best families in history. And one of them, he mentions, is the family of Ibrahim. And then he says, the family of Musa, and then he says the family of Imran. وآل عمران على العالمين. إن الله اصطفى آدم ونوحا وآل إبراهيم وآل عمران على العالمين. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He chose these families to be the best families in history. Who is the family of Ibrahim?
Yeah, so we have Hajar and Ishaq, Ismail.
Good. Ishaq, Ismail, all of his children. So we know that family.
Yeah.
We know who Adam is, right?
Yeah.
We know who What else we said?
Musa.
Musa, we know who Musa's family is. Who's Imran? Here's the question. Like we know these people, we know who Ibrahim is, we know all these people. Who's Imran? Yunus, do you know who Imran is? Who is he?
Person.
He's a person, mashallah. He's also not just a person. Imran is the name of a surah. Right? The biggest surah in the Quran is what? Baqarah. Second biggest surah is what? Al Imran. Al Imran means the family of Imran. Who's Imran?
Nabi.
Does anybody know? Imran was basically a descendant from Musa and Harun, and the ulama say, the scholars say that he was a descendant of Harun. So remember, Musa had a brother who was also a prophet, Harun, and his descendant was a man named Imran. And Imran was a very righteous person. He was the sheikh of his community, pretty much. He was extremely righteous. And he lived in Jerusalem, which is, in Arabic we say Al-Quds, Jerusalem, which is where, in which country?
Israel.
Who said Israel? Guys, I'm gonna talk to your dad and your mom. I think just kidding. Palestine, all right? Jerusalem, the capital of Palestine, right? So, this is the capital. What's in Al-Quds? What's in Jerusalem? There's a very important thing or place in Jerusalem. What is it? Who said that? MashaAllah, Masjid Al-Aqsa. And we've said many times, I've said this so many times, one of the worst things that has happened to our ummah is people don't know anything about Masjid Al-Aqsa and they stopped caring. And I think somebody last week, he asked me, wait, there's like a war going on in Palestine? Like, no, we don't know anything. And this, subhanAllah, this is one of the evil tactics that they're using, that they want us to forget that there's anything called Masjid Al-Aqsa. They want us to forget that there's anything called Palestine. But in any case, Imran and his family, they were the ones who were responsible for taking care of Masjid Al-Aqsa. He would lead the salah in Masjid Al-Aqsa, right? His family would be the ones to take care of the masjid. They would clean it, they would keep it safe. They would have classes, they would teach, they would have their students in Masjid Al-Aqsa, right? And this is hundreds and hundreds of years after the Prophet Musa and the Prophet Harun. The wife of Imran was also a very righteous woman, right? And she was also a person that would worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. She lived right next to the masjid. One day, and some of the books they mention her name was Hinna. Hinna in English is what? Who knows? Hinna, Hannah. So, Hannah, you say in English, but in Arabic they say Hinna, right? Her name was Hinna according to some books. One day, she's sitting at her house and she's worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and she sees a bird outside of her window. And she sees this bird taking care of its chick. And it's giving it worms and it's covering it from the wind. And she sees this and she feels the mercy, the love that this mother bird had for its chick. So she made dua to Allah. She said, Ya Allah, I want to have a child too. I want to have a child. Because she didn't have any children. Yes.
If we're speaking about birds, today when I was walking back from school, I was coming back from school on the bus. This bird, there was this guy, he had an Israel flag on
Now
his
you made
window.
this story spicy.
And then this crow, they came and ripped off the flag.
This happened in front of you?
Yes, I watched it.
Allahu Akbar. I don't have my hat, but okay. So, she sees this bird and she feels this way, so she makes dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why does she want a child? Why would anyone want a child? That's a better question. Yes.
To keep the family running.
To keep the family running. Now remember, this is a family that's descended all the way from Harun. And now she has no kids, meaning if they die, the family's done. The family ends at their line. So that's number one. She wants to keep the family alive. What else? Why would you want kids? Yes, Yunus. Yunus has been raising his hand the entire time.
Because him kill all the ones.
Sure. Ibrahim, why do you want kids? You're gonna be like, who said I want kids? Alright, never mind. Qais, why do you want kids? Madam, you're gonna make fun. So you can teach them about Israel? So, I mean, usually a person wants kids to teach them, right? To raise them, to pass on a legacy, right? Most of you guys here play soccer, right? If you had a son, wouldn't you want to like, oh, I can't wait to teach him soccer, to get him like nice cleats and, you know, sign him up for school classes so he can be a good soccer player, right? Because you know, you're passing on legacy. She wanted a son. Why? Because she wanted to dedicate someone to the masjid. She said, I want to raise a child who's just going to live in the masjid, who's going to learn the Torah, right? At that time, there was no Quran. The book of Allah was the Torah. Who's just going to learn the Torah, who's going to worship, who's going to take care of the masjid. She's telling to Allah, she says, Ya Allah, I want a son, so I can just give him to you, right? إِنِّي نَذَرْتُ لَكَ مَا فِي بَطْنِي مُحَرَّرًا. She says in Surah Maryam, right? That Hinna, she said, oh Allah, I'm donating what's in my stomach, meaning what's in my belly, I'm donating it to you. I want my son to go and be just for the masjid, just for serving Islam. And this is a reminder for us, by the way. A lot of times, and I hear this from a lot of people, before the child is even born, before someone even has kids, they're already planning. She's going to be a doctor. He's going to be a soccer player. I'm going to make sure that he's going to go to the gym with me every single day. Oh, I'm going to make sure he's going to be in Harvard Law School, blah, blah, blah. We have all he's going to be a businessman. He's going to be the new Elon Musk, right? We have all these huge plans for our kids. And then when it comes to the deen, when it comes to the religion, it's like, yeah, I mean, I'll send him some YouTube videos to watch or something like that. And then a parent comes to me, their kid's like 18, oh, he doesn't pray. It's too late, bro. I don't know what you were planning, right? You planned their sports, you wanted them to be in the Olympics before they were even born. But by the time they're 18 and they don't know anything about Islam, then you're like, oh, can you teach them about Islam? Like, you should have planned for this already. So Hinna, she wasn't thinking of her son to be a businessman or a work. The only thing that's on him, I want him to be just responsible for the masjid, to be the imam. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answered her dua and she became pregnant. And while she was pregnant, her husband, who's her husband? What's his name? Imran. Her husband, Imran, passes away. So before she even has her child, her husband passes away. And then she has her child, and the child is a girl. And which makes me come back to the question that I asked earlier. Why are there so many boys more than girls here today?
Because back then, they made boys live in the masjid.
Okay, and what about the girls?
And they made them the girls at home.
They made the girls at home. Here's a question for you guys. Who goes to the masjid more, boys or girls?
Boys.
Boys. Who becomes the sheikh? Boy or girl?
Boys.
Who usually memorizes Quran?
Boys.
Boys, right? Who's usually responsible for the masajid?
Boys.
Who usually has the Islamic knowledge?
Boys.
Boys. Who usually annoys me?
Girls.
Boys, right? So usually when it comes to becoming Islamic, or when it comes to gaining knowledge, when it comes to all these things, this is something that boys do. The girls don't usually do this. It's not usually their thing. So when she sees that she has a daughter, she says, Rabbi inni wada'tuha untha, wallahu a'lamu bima wada'at. Right? She says, oh Allah, I gave birth to a girl. And Allah says, I know what you gave birth to. I know more than you what this girl is. Right? وَإِنِّي سَمَّيْتُهَا مَرْيَمْ. And she says, I'm going to name this girl Maryam. Right? She was expecting a boy. She wanted a boy, but she got a girl instead.
I got a little bit confused. Imran, isn't he Maryam's father?
Imran is the husband of Hinna, who is the mother of Maryam.
So
Imran is the father.
yeah, why would you?
Yeah.
You're confusing me.
And he used to come visit her and he used to find food. And
No, that's Zakaria.
Oh, okay.
Wait,
Yeah.
Ibrahim, are you sure it's in Maryam? I don't think that's in Surah Maryam.
That's in Imran, sorry.
Yeah.
Wait, says Imran,
Maryam's father. When we say Maryam ibnat Imran. So Maryam ibnat Imran.
Maryam.
So, one question at a time. Yeah.
I came to the lesson a little late. Which Maryam are we talking about? The Prophet Isa's mother?
Yes. So, today we're going to talk about Maryam, in case you haven't already guessed, right? So Maryam, she was born as a girl. You know, obviously Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows her future and knows what she is, right? And her mother says, Ya Allah, I wanted it to be a boy so that he could be responsible for the masjid. But, you know, I choose, you know, you chose her to be Maryam, to be a girl. I named her Maryam. وَإِنِّي أُعِيدُهَا بِكَ وَذُرِّيَّتَهَا مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ. The Rasul said, she made a dua to Allah. She says, oh Allah, protect her from the shaitan. Now, the Rasul said, pay attention to this, yeah. The Rasul said, every time a child is born, the shaitan, out of his hatred for us as humans, for the children of Adam, shaitan pokes the baby. So what happens to the baby? It cries. Which is why every single baby, when it's born, it what? Cries. Why? Because the shaitan comes and pokes him. The Rasul said, except two people. There have been two people in history that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected them from the shaitan even poking them. And that first person is Maryam. Because of the dua of her mother, when Maryam was born, she wasn't crying. She was alive, she was awake. Now usually if a baby's not crying, that's a medical emergency. Right? And you put them in the incubator, something's wrong. Right? Maryam was born, she's awake, she's fine, she's blinking, she's breathing, she's completely fine, and she's not crying. Shaitan couldn't poke her. Right? So that's the first person. We'll talk about who the second person is. But now, yeah.
So babies cry because Shaitan just randomly comes in.
That's what I just said.
Yeah. Tell them.
So you're saying if any parent says that they'll have...
I didn't say that. You could make dua for your child, but whether Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to grant you that blessing or not, Allahu alam. But the Rasul said only two people, Allah has given them that blessing.
So far.
About the babies that don't cry.
The other babies that don't cry, usually it's because something's wrong. It's a medical
I
problem.
was talking about the other one. You said.
Oh, who's the second one?
Yeah.
Is that what you're asking?
I mean, does the shaitan still poke babies or?
So it's probably that he pokes them, but they're not medically enough to even cry. You know, like if they're, you know what I mean? So, yeah. Yeah.
What do people say like scientifically about baby crying?
There's a lot of medical stuff, and mashallah, there are doctors in this community that can explain more. I think there's an amniotic fluid that's inside their. Yeah, okay. I'm like, okay, you can answer him then. So there's an amniotic fluid inside the baby that they need to burp out, and there's a bunch of other things. You can ask a doctor about that. That's not my. I'm an accountant, you know me.
Wait, if they cry already, so why does the doctor slap?
Usually because to slap them, and I think this is an old practice, I don't know if they still do it, but back then they used to do that because there's still fluid inside the baby's stomach that needs to get out. Anyways, we're not going to make this a biology class. So now she has this baby, but there's a problem. What happened to Maryam's father?
Bye.
I mean, he wasn't killed, but he died. You're like, they got him. So Imran was dead.
Father.
So technically, Maryam was an orphan because back then an orphan was considered anyone who didn't have a father.
Fatherless.
So all the people in Masjid al-Aqsa, they got together and they say, we all want to take care of Maryam. We want to be the ones to adopt her and to take care of her. And everyone was arguing who was going to be the one to take care of Maryam. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَمَا كُنْتَ لَدَيْهِمْ إِذْ يُلْقُونَ أَقْلَامُهُمْ أَيُّهُمْ يَكْفُلُ مَرْيَمَ. So they decided we're going to draw lots. What that means is they write names on a thing, they shake it, and then they pick one out randomly. I mean, now we have the spinner on the app, but back then they would just pick a lot randomly. And whose name came out? Khaltu Amani? Sayyidina Zakaria. It's okay. So the name that came out was Sayyidina Zakaria. Zakaria, who was the prophet at the time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decided, you're going to be the one who will take care of Maryam.
You are the
Now, Sayyidina Zakaria, he was the prophet, and he was also related to Maryam. The scholars differ how he was related to Maryam. Some say he was related, through marriage on her mom's side. Some say that he was the uncle, Allah alam, but we know that he was related to Maryam in some way. So, Sayyidina Zakaria, he said, listen, I'm in the masjid all the time. So I'm not gonna always go back and forth from Masjid al-Aqsa to a different house. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm going to build a small room attached to Masjid al-Aqsa, right? And Maryam can live there, and I'll take care of her, I'll send her food and stuff like that, but she'll be in Masjid al-Aqsa. She gets her own little, we call it in Arabic, we call it a mihrab. Mihrab is a small space, literally as big as this. It's literally meant just to read Quran and to pray, and it's usually part of a masjid. But he made a separate room. Nobody could see her, nobody could talk to her. You're in this room, here, you can now pray. So Maryam alayhi salam, she was born, and now she's going to live where?
In a small room.
In where?
In the
Which
masjid.
Masjid al-Aqsa, which is where?
In
Where, Qais?
Jerusalem.
Israel, bro. So, she now is growing up there. What goes on in the masjid all the time?
praying.
Praying, what else? You don't know what happens in a masjid? You came from a synagogue?
Quran.
Quran. I mean, back then, no Quran, it was Torah, yeah? Worshipping Allah. What else? Classes, mashallah, thank you, Jannah. Classes. Now, back then, it was always the boys that would attend the classes, right? Sayyidina Zakaria and the other mashayikh and the other priests and rabbis, they would be giving classes in the masjid, and the only people attending the class would be who? Boys. But Maryam now, she has her own room part of the masjid, so she would be attending the classes too, and she would be learning, and she was private, nobody would see her. So she's listening, and she's hearing, and she's learning, but she's by herself. She doesn't have, she has her privacy.
So she can't get out?
I mean, she can get out, but she's now attending the classes, and she's worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and even many ahadith, describes Maryam as, Maryam was someone who was the most modest human being ever. And I'm going to spend some time talking about this at the end of the story, inshallah. But one of the names we have is Maryam al-Batul, right? Maryam al-Adhra, right? These are names that we have for Sayyidah Maryam, that she was extremely modest, she was extremely respectful, right? She had so much hayat, meaning she didn't let anyone see her. No man ever saw her, right? She was always in her room, and the only thing she was concerned with was worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And she's a teenage girl, by the way. The ulama say at this time, she was like 15, 16 years old. What is a 16-year-old girl usually obsessed with?
Snapchat.
Snapchat, huh?
Boys.
What? Boys, yeah. Boys doing her nails. What else?
Their style.
Their style. What dress they're gonna wear for prom? Crop top. I was doing that. TikTok. Oh, okay. Right? So this is what a teenage girl is usually up to. Maryam is not like that. Maryam, first of all, she has a hijab that's even more than what a hijab nowadays is, which is that she would be in her room by herself. She doesn't let any person see her. And she would be constantly worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if she's attending anything, she's attending the lectures just by learning. Yeah.
If people like try to see.
No, because this was somebody that they had huge respect for, because this is Sayyidina Zakaria is taking care of her. They're not going to go and like, oh, the Prophet's adoptive daughter, we're going to go and try to see her. No, she had her privacy. And people knew her, but she was extremely modest. She had a lot of modesty. Huh? Okay, good question. What does modesty mean? This is probably something I should. Nam Yunus. You're just raising your hand because you want to raise your hand.
This is strict too.
Bara, what does modesty mean? Clean is part of it. It doesn't mean physically clean like your hygiene. What does it mean? Respect, right? Here's the best way to explain modesty, right? Modesty is basically, let's say you're out in the park and you need to use the bathroom. And this guy says, go use the bushes. And another guy says, there's a bathroom like half a mile away. And out of your hayat, you decide to walk all the way to the bathroom instead of using the bushes. Even though the bushes is easier. Modesty, there's so many ways. Modesty is basically when you're talking to someone from the opposite gender, right? You're professional. Modesty is when you're going out in public, you're dressed in a way that looks presentable. Right, I always get annoyed when someone answers the door. He's wearing like a tank top and shorts and like what? Oh, like get dressed. Don't answer the door if you're like that, right? So this is yani modesty. And Maryam was the most modest. And Allah and the Rasul ﷺ mentioned that Allah istafa Maryam ala nisa'il alameen. Allah chose Maryam to be the greatest woman of all time. Now when we hear this should be an alarm in our head, like, wait a minute, this is the greatest woman of all time. You know what the greatest woman of all time means?
Yes.
Means she's the best of 50% of all humankind. If humans are 50 men, 50% women, she's the best of 50% of them. How do we know this? Maryam alayhi salam, she's sitting in the mihrab and she hears the angel say, Ya Maryam, inna Allah astafaki wa tahharaki wa astafaki ala nisa'il alameen. She hears the angel saying that Allah has purified you and chosen you and anointed you over all of the other women. Yes.
What about Khadija?
Good question. What about Khadija? The Rasul ﷺ said, Maryam was the best of the women of her time and Khadija is the best woman in our time. And here's a common thing in Islam is that when it comes to the best people, we don't make it like a competition, like who's better, Sayyidina Ibrahim or Sayyidina Muhammad, right? Sayyidina Ibrahim said, oh Allah send someone who's better than me, and Sayyidina Muhammad said, Ibrahim was better than me. Why? Out of humility, that they both said that they're better. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, لا نفرق بين أحد منهم, right? That we don't distinguish them. So Maryam was the best, Allah calls her the best woman of all time, and the Rasul as a respect to Khadija, that she's the best woman in our time. Yeah.
So it's not good to have a favorite prophet?
It's not that it's not good, it's just that we don't say that one is better than the other in the sense that there was something wrong with Sayyidina Musa, for example, because he wasn't just as good as Sayyidina Muhammad. No, it's not that. It's just that we know for a fact that Sayyidina Muhammad is the best prophet. We know that he's the best prophet, but that doesn't mean the others, there was something bad about them or there's something wrong. Do you understand what I'm saying? But in any case, they were told that Maryam was the best woman of all time. So when we hear this, whether you're a boy or a girl, you should listen. Why am I saying this? And this is, by the way, when I was deciding to make this class, one of the reasons why I decided to make this class was because of Maryam. Out of all the women we're going to talk about was because of Maryam. Why? Because the definition of what a woman is today has disappeared. We have no idea what a woman is supposed to be. Like literally, we don't know. We see a woman dressed in a certain way, acting a certain way, and we're like, that's normal, right? What? Yeah, you better stop. I know where you were today.
Yo.
It wasn't anywhere bad, I'm just saying. Anyways, so, in any case, Zakaria alayhi salam would visit Maryam once a day, and he would open the mihrab to check on Maryam. One day he goes and he opens the mihrab and he finds that Maryam is sitting there eating fruit. And he's confused because he never got her that fruit. Number one. Number two, the fruit was out of season. Back then, right? I mean, till now, fruits have a season, right? Watermelons are in the summer. You're not going to get watermelons in the winter. Nowadays, because of modern technology, we can get those things. We can get watermelons in the winter, for example, but it's just not going to be as good. They genetically modify it or they have a greenhouse or something. But back then, it was impossible. You had the summer fruits, you had the spring fruits, you had the winter fruits, and that's it. Maryam is sitting there and she's eating fruits out of season. Beautiful, fresh, ripe. And she's sitting there eating them. And Zakaria is like, Ya Maryam, anna laki hadha. He goes and like, Maryam, how did you get this? Right? I never got you these fruits and they're out of season. And she says, قالت هو من عند الله إن الله يرزق من يشاء بغير حساب. She said, this is from Allah, and Allah gives whoever He wants, whatever He wants. Meaning another benefit that Maryam had was that her dua was answered all the time. She said, Ya Allah, I feel like cherries would just appear, miracle. They would just pop up, poof, and she'd just start eating. Her relationship with Allah was so close that she would just make dua for these fruits, and Allah would give her these fruits. She would be sitting in her room and she's like, you know what, I feel like whatever, tomatoes, whatever fruit. And Allah would just give it to her. When Sayyidina Zakaria alayhi salam saw this, he got the idea, I should make dua like Maryam is making dua. And what is the dua that he made? He made dua for a son. because Zakaria was very, very old. He was an old man, and we see this in the surah. اشتعل الرأس شيبة ولم أكن بدعائك ربي شقيا, right? He makes dua to Allah, he says, oh Allah, my hair turned gray, blah, blah, blah. And Allah gives him a son, and who knows who his son was? Yeah, Yahya? It was Yahya, good. Sayyidina Yahya. So, Yahya alayhi salam was inspired. Zakaria got the idea to make dua to Allah for him, and he was a prophet, yeah. From Maryam. Now, when Maryam was 16 years old, she's sitting in the mihrab, and she's minding her own business. It's a day like any other day, and she's worshipping Allah, and suddenly a man walks in. Just a random guy she's never seen before just walks in. And I remember I told this story to a group of girls, right? Yeah, some really cool girls. And I asked them, what would you do if you saw this? And one of them said, my mom taught me that if a man comes up to me, I rip his ear off, and then I'm like, I got really scared. But if you're not gonna have that, leave. I'm not messing around, don't do that. But I'm not messing around, don't do that. Yeah. So she, she sees this man come in, and if it's a very scary situation to be in, that you're a young girl by yourself, and then a strange man comes in, and she doesn't know who he was. But this person, he was a very handsome man, right? Basharan Sawiya, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes him in the Quran, that he was symmetrical, he was very good looking, and he was very handsome, right? What did Maryam say? Did she jump for the Glock? Did she run away? What did she do? Yeah.
She stayed calm.
She stayed calm. What did she say?
Jump for the clock.
Yeah, I know you know it. You don't want to say it? Yunus, I know you don't know. Yunus, you just like raising your hand now.
Fifth on the quest.
Okay, so she says, أعوذ بالرحمن منك إن كنت تقيا. She says, I seek refuge in Ar-Rahman, in Allah, that you better, basically she's saying you better back away. Like, I don't play games. Leave me alone, right? I'm seeking refuge that Allah protects me. When she says this, the man reveals his true form, that he's not a man, he's actually
An angel.
Angel Jibreel. And again, this is something that I said last week. There are no women prophets. But that doesn't mean Allah has not communicated with women and sent Jibreel and had sent the messages, right? And one of them is Maryam, that we said she heard the angels, and now Jibreel himself, the same Jibreel that gave the Quran to Sayyidina Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right, is coming to say Sayyidina Maryam. And what does he come to say? That قال إنما أنا رسول ربك لأهب لك غلاما زكيا. She comes to him, he comes to her, and he says, I'm only a messenger from Allah, and I have a message for you, that you're going to have a good son. Now, Maryam maybe hasn't like gone to school for biology, but everybody knows.
But she learned from
You have two people in order to have a child, right?
Father
If you
and a
didn't know
mother.
this, now you do know this, right?
a father and a mother.
You need two people to have a child. And Maryam is like, أَنَّا يَكُونُ لِي غُلَامٌ وَلَمْ يَمْسَسْنِي بَشَرٌ وَلَمْ أَكُ بَغِيًّا. She says, how am I supposed to have a child, right? If no person has ever touched me. Forget flirting, forget having a boyfriend, a'udhu billah, forget. Nobody's ever even touched me. وَلَمْ أَكُ بَغِيًّا. She says, and I'm not inappropriate, right? So, what is Jibreel's answer? It's the same answer that Maryam gave to Zakaria when he asked, where did you get this fruit from? What was her answer?
I asked Allah for it.
No, what did Jibreel say?
All I can
God, Allah can do whatever He wants, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all He says is kun fayakun. Allah says kun, be, and it becomes. And at that very instance, Maryam became pregnant. Now, there's a very interesting thing when I was researching for this class, and we've all heard this. I mean, raise your hand if you know a Christian. Yeah, like, come on, we're in America. There are more Christians here than anywhere else in the world. There are more Christians here than in Italy. So, the idea that Isa, that Sayyidina Isa, Jesus, right, is a word from Allah, or he's the spirit of Allah, or he's the word of Allah. We see these on a lot of TikTokers that says, oh, debunking Islam. It says in the Quran that Isa is the word of Allah and isn't the word of Allah. This is a complete misunderstanding. When Allah calls Isa, bro, I want you to go outside and go for a walk. And Laith, you're next if you don't cut it out. There are people like half your age here and they're being way more respectful than you two people. Go for a walk. I'm asking you two to go for a walk. Laith, go with him. Yeah, go for a walk. Come back when you're ready. So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says kun and he becomes. That doesn't mean Isa is the actual word of Allah, that Allah's word came out and became Isa. No. When Allah calls him, he's the word of Allah, meaning he said kun and he became. And a very interesting thing, Allah has proven that he can create however he likes. How? We have a person that was created with no mother or no father. Who was that person? Sayyidina Adam. Raise your hand. You're correct, but yes. Raise your hand, right? Sayyidina Adam. Then we have a person that was created from a man but no woman. Who is that? We have a person who was created from a man but no woman. Who is that person? Eve, Hawa, right? Allah took the rib of Adam and created Hawa. So she was created from a man, but there was no woman. She was the first woman. And then we have people who are created from both a man and a woman, which is everyone else. Us, you and me. And now Allah is completing. He says, now I'm going to create a person from a woman, but no man. And that is who? Sayyidina Isa. Right? Oh, okay, mashallah. You know. He has no father. Right? And again, we as Muslims, we reject the idea that Allah is Isa's father. Allah has no child. This is not befitting of Allah to have a child.
How much is true from the Bible, though?
Depends what we're talking about. If it's the whole message of the Bible is that Isa is the son of God, then that's 100% false.
Meant his abilities, like can he walk on water, carry water?
We'll talk about that inshallah. So, Maryam, from the word of Allah, kun, she becomes pregnant immediately. How old is she?
16.
16 years old. She's a very young girl, right? And she's never been with anybody. She has no husband. There's no one, right? And now she's pregnant. Allah has decided that she's going to be the mother of another person. We'll find out who. When the time for her to deliver comes, she's been concealing this. She's been keeping this a secret. She leaves Masjid al-Aqsa in Jerusalem and she goes to a nearby city, which is the city of Bethlehem.
Wait, nobody
Right?
saw her in the way.
Hmm?
Like nobody saw her.
Nobody saw her. If they saw her, they didn't know who she was. She was covered up. She was secret, yani. And she went to the village of Bethlehem, which till this day is still around. In English, we say Bethlehem. Right? Bethlehem, Bethlehem. So my sheikh is actually from Bethlehem. It's a very beautiful place. But she goes there and she's going to start delivering. And she's by herself. Now, for us as guys, we're probably never going to understand this, right? But giving birth is a terrifying experience, right? And you're like, I don't know. We know, right? It's not an easy experience. How do we know how difficult this was? Maryam, usually when a person is giving birth, there's doctors, there's nurses, the whole family's there, Sitto's there, everyone's there. They're like, FaceTiming, they're like keeping you down. Do you need anything? The ambulance comes. She's by herself in the middle of nowhere. Like it's a very difficult experience and she's by herself. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, she says, Ya laytani mittu qabla hadha wa kuntu nasiyan mansiya. It was so painful when she was delivering that she said, I wish I died before this. I wish I never existed. From how painful it was. All right? Is it a painful experience, mothers?
Not these days.
Not these days.
Wait, is it more difficult now?
Yeah. I mean, now they have like medicine, and now there's like, the Caesar, there's a lot of C-section. Yeah, there's a lot of things that makes it easier. But just regular childbirth without a hospital, without doctors, it's so painful. She's saying, I wish I died. I wish I died before this. Yeah. Yeah, she's in the middle of the desert now. She didn't want to deliver around other people, so she went out by herself to deliver the baby. Now here's a question for you guys. Why is she keeping this a secret? Why didn't she just go to Sayyidina Zacharias like, yo, I got pregnant? Well, he already has a son. He already had Yahya.
Everyone's gonna lose their father.
Yeah.
I know why.
If a woman came and she's pregnant and she said, oh, an angel gave me this baby. Yeah, sorry, sister, I don't believe that.
Little.
You lying to the dead. Right? I was
You are
whatever.
not the father.
Right? You are not the father, right? It's no one's gonna believe that. They're going to assume that there's a father, and they're gonna be like, who's the father? And by the way, we live in a time right now, I'll save that for later, but in any case, when she's delivering, it's a very painful experience, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends the angels and they tell her, right? La tahsini, don't be scared, don't be sad, right? Allah sends a river of water, and then He tells Maryam, وَهُزِّي إِلَيْكِ بِجِذْعِ النَّخْلَةِ there's a palm tree next to you, shake it, and these dates will fall and you can eat them. فَكُلِي وَاشْرَبِي وَقَرِّي عَيْنًا. By the way, it's scientifically proven, I think, that when you're delivering a baby, you need to give them something to hold on to. Like, you know, the movies where the lady, she's delivering, she holds the husband's hand and she breaks his hand. Like, women actually get super strong at this point. They do, like, scary things. Like, they rip the bed in half or something. So, I mean, a regular tree, a palm tree, if you shake it, you can't shake it. It's really difficult. Like, even as a grown man, if you got 5 men, you can't shake a palm tree. It's very thick. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave her this miracle that she was able to shake the palm tree. The dates came and she delivered the baby. I mean, when they're ready to come back, they're ready to come back. If they're having fun outside, I don't care. Did you have a question? Okay. So, and another reason Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told her to do this, why? Is Allah is teaching her that not everything is just going to come to you like this. You have to put in a little bit of effort, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make it easy. And she finally delivers the baby, and the baby is who?
Isa.
Sayyidina Isa, the Prophet Isa. Again, he's not the son of Allah. He was born miraculously. He has no father. Just like Adam has no father or mother. If any Christian tells you, oh, he's the son of God because he has no father. Okay, well, Adam has no father, he has no mother. He must be a bigger God, yani? Yeah.
So, wait, who's Yahya then?
Yahya is the son of Sayyidina Zachariah. Yani,
Isa's
they're
cousin.
related, yani they would be cousins technically.
Wait.